Welcome back to Rides and Drives Team Radio. I'm Harvey. I'm here with Kaz, and this weekend we're talking about the Freedom 250 in Washington, D.C. Yes, it's America's birthday, and so I'm drinking a red, white, and blue Pabst Blue Ribbon beer on this podcast. No sponsorship from Pabst. We're just doing it because it's the right thing to do today.
They want a blue ribbon. It's a good
That's
beer.
right.
But perhaps if you want to sponsor us, that's fine. I genuinely do consume your product on a regular basis. Um, this race has, for a new street circuit with a not very inspiring track layout, this race has probably generated more conversation than any on the schedule outside of the Indy 500.
Yeah, for
And
sure.
it's a big week that we're
Yeah,
finally here.
it's a big week for IndyCar because this is a second national spotlight race. I know we had talked about Arlington as wanting to make it a
Mhm.
signature event for them, and it really does feel like that. But this is a
But they're not there yet. Yeah,
right now,
this is
this is a
happening now.
one-time event that they are trying to make second only to the Indy 500. I would be shocked if at some point during the race that viewership doesn't peak at more than 2 million people. I could
Yeah.
see this being the second highest rated race on the Indy 500 calendar with all the promotion boxes put into it, with all the, sort of communication that's come out from the government about it, right? They're trying to make this part of America's 250th birthday celebration. And honestly, IndyCar should be because it is a quintessential, the oldest racing series in America. They started this in 1908, racing at the Indy 500, and
Mhm.
it's been a part of our American fabric since then. So I totally get it. And we can talk politics if we want, but I'd
Yeah,
like to stay away from that.
look, IndyCar is a place I have the luxury of being able to go to get away. So that's how I'd like to approach this conversation. Um, but yes, you're so correct. When you think of American motorsport, regardless of ratings numbers between series at various times throughout the history of American motorsport. When you think of American motorsport, you think of the Indy 500. I guarantee you that if you ask young European drivers who have not really watched much racing in America to name the big thing, they would absolutely all say the Indy 500. It's the thing that is known. And that goes, by the way, for my friends who are not racing fans. Like I say, I
Right.
do a podcast about IndyCar with my dad, and my friends say, "Oh, like the Indy 500."
Right.
Because that is the reference point for American motorsport. So involving IndyCar in a celebration of the country and the birthday and the beliefs that we all individually
Freedom.
think that it's
Freedom.
about. Um, this is this
Yeah.
is a worthwhile celebration, and I'm happy that the race is happening.
Yeah.
Um, let's start with the track
I
because there's no way we can have to have this weird conversation about the track.
yeah, the track is first of all, DC is a really tough place to put a track in because
Yes, yeah,
as a city
huge
it was
challenge.
designed on around a grid and spoke system. So it's really hard to have interesting corners. And it's really funny. I'll put a link to this in the comments, but Scott Dixon did his usual track overview talk about what he expects as a driver and all of this. And it's just really funny. It's like if we drive down this street and then we turn right. And then we drive down this street and then we turn left. And then we turn left again. And it's 90 degrees and it's 90 degrees. And you know, it's not going to be an interesting track from a layout standpoint, but it's going to be cool to see the cars zoom by the Air and Space Museum. The start finish line is right in front of the U.S. Capitol. That'll be in the
Mhm.
background. So that's super cool, from a optics standpoint.
I'm
But
expecting pictures from this race are going,
yeah,
regardless of how the race goes, these pictures are going to be pretty legendary. And I'm looking forward to seeing a lot of that because I've taken many trips to DC and a lot of these museums and monuments mean a lot to me. So it's really exciting to be able to see those cars that I love in that place.
yeah,
Now track is boring. I think we've all acknowledged that. There's nothing inspiring about the layout, and I understand why. You're right. DC it just doesn't. You'd have to utilize roundabouts so dangerously in order to put anything like a chicane into DC. But what does that mean for the racing?
That's a really good question because it should be a fairly simple track for the drivers to drive. The corners all have fairly similar radius. There's one, the turn going on to the long front straight is a little less than 90 degrees. The turn coming off of it is a little more than 90 degrees. So that
Okay.
those will be places like that'll be a heavy braking zone at the end of the longest straight. So you'll see a lot of passing right there. Then, you've got a couple of, a 90-degree left, a 90-degree right, and then another 90-degree left that take you onto the street that'll take you in front of the Air and Space Museum. And that's really the long-ish back straight. And there is a little. I don't think you could really call it a chicane, but a wiggle in the track toward the end of that, which should also create a little bit of interesting uh, dynamic going into the braking zone. But according to Dixon, what this means is the race is going to be close because it's not hard. Right. It's
Okay.
not a hard track to learn. There are only 7 corners on it. And it's drive fast in a straight line, brake, accelerate, drive fast in a straight line. So
So
I
so Scott's essentially telling us because the drivers won't have to fight the track, they can
Right.
fight each other a little bit.
Yeah, I would think so. I think we're going to see a lot of good wheel-to-wheel action on this track. So the track may not be exciting. I think the racing will be very exciting. Let's say for the sake, similar the Milwaukee Mile, right? It's a
Mhm.
mile oval with two, basically corners on each end, and it doesn't seem like it would be exciting, but man, does it create some exciting racing, right? So, are we going to have a little bit of, we won't see the carnage that we saw at Markham, but we might see a little chaos, right? Going into that high speed turn two could be kind of interesting. So, we'll see how the racing plays out, but I expect it to be close and I expect it to be fairly clean.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
I'm happy to hear that. I really want this to be an exciting race. Um, Now, Markham had some issues with the fan experience.
Yes.
And I think more than the race's existence and the track itself, this is something that people have been particularly concerned about with this race.
Yeah.
So Markham's issues came down to, as far as I'm concerned, the promoter was not prepared. Um,
Certainly not
Roger
prepared on
Penske,
Friday. Yeah.
yeah, on Friday, they were not ready to put anything on the track. Roger Penske and Penske Entertainment are producing this race.
Yeah.
Um, you don't get to be Roger Penske for no reason. I have a lot of trust in that team. So, and I actually read an account from a fan in DC who walked the track earlier this week and said it's already coming together and looking great. And I have no doubts that the track will be ready to go on Saturday. So
Yeah.
that's really great to hear.
Streets are already closed as
Mhm.
they're moving things into place today. So they will be ready to run the race. All of that stuff will be in place. Now, the overall fan experience, that's a different question because it's not just Penske and the promotion team there. Now we're dealing with DC, DC police, the
Mhm.
crowd control that they put in place for this event. And, as such a high profile event in such a, let's call it politically sensitive area, right?
Sure.
It could, I expect to be security to be super tight. You've seen the banned items list that you can't bring in, right?
Yeah, yeah. So most of it, look, most of it makes sense. I understand why you can't have people bringing coolers full of beer into a race in DC. That's just not something that we can feasibly do. I do have some, so my issues with the banned items kind of go hand in hand with the layout of the fan sections. And so
Right.
I think I'd like to talk about that first, and then we'll talk about the band
Yeah,
items.
let
There,
me do
yeah,
one
you
thing
finish your
before
point.
that. No, it's fine. I just want to make sure people are clear that this race is free to attend, but if you
Mhm.
don't have a ticket and they have all been distributed, you cannot get in. So
Yep.
if you've heard, oh, it's going to be a free IndyCar race, I'll just go to DC and go watch the race. You can't get in. And the tickets were given away on a lottery system, and they are not transferable as well. So if someone tries to sell you or give you a ticket to the race, you can't, it won't work. So only the people who receive the tickets will be able to get in. They have to show ID. Again, if you're going to the race and you do have a ticket, plan extra time. If someone tries to sell or give you a ticket, it's probably fake. Don't take it. You won't be able to get in.
That's such a good point, Harvey. Thank you for bringing that up. Yeah, you cannot just wander downtown to DC and expect to be able to figure out a way to get into this race. Furthermore, they are separated into two sections that have two separate entrances. If you have a Stars ticket, you cannot go into the Stripe section. Real bummer for people who, autograph sessions, right? The drivers are
Right.
split between sections, and so a little bit of a bummer for people who are hoping to see their favorite driver. My advice to those people is if you hang out as close to the front as possible and Alex Palou is anywhere near you, he will sign something.
Right.
Um, not out of vanity, out of love for his fans. Um, yeah, so these fan sections. What we essentially have are two long strips of, I'm assuming grass, but it's just a city block.
Well, it's the mall. It's the National Mall that it
Yeah,
runs in. So these are, two sections of the National Mall where
two
people,
sections of the mall. Okay, that's where
yeah,
we're. So the thing is though, the mall is long
yep,
and narrow.
yep,
The part of these sections facing the track are the short end,
right,
which means if they gave away 100,000 tickets, we're shoving 50,000 people into each of those sections, probably space for that. That's fine.
yeah,
I have no problem with close quarters. If you want to look at the track, I really recommend you get there early because
yeah,
there's just not a lot of track border for GA. If you get there late, I don't, screens are your very best hope.
yeah. I would think so. We aren't in DC. We haven't seen the fan viewing section, but
But I've seen a
get
map,
yeah, we've seen the
you know.
map. We've seen the way they've laid it out. So get there early. Be prepared. When you show up, you have to bring a clear bag with you. You can't have any of that. And you went through the list of banned items, right?
Yeah, so my the banned item list makes plenty of sense. There are a
Right.
lot of things that you can't bring to a race in DC that you can bring to Road America. I totally get that. Um, Given the way these fan sections are laid out, though, you can't bring in a chair
Right.
or any kind of assisted seating. And that one, like, oh, that one I think is particularly tough to swallow. I know that IndyCar fans are used to being able to bring in coolers, and I'm seeing a lot of complaints online that they can't bring in coolers. And that would bum me out too, but you can't always bring a cooler. I get it. Just don't go to
Right.
that race if you really must not pay for concessions beer. But God, you think about somebody's grandfather
Yeah.
who really wants to see this race in DC and
And yeah, if he
can't
can't bring a little
stand for two
folding chair with
hours and he
him.
can't bring a little folding chair for grandpa. Like, come
Right.
on, guys. I'm assuming that would just take longer at security. And
Right.
it
I
just,
think
but
there's that.
I
So
mean, God, they have to have scanners with them for, I mean, I don't know. It just feels like that feels like a little step too far. Maybe that's like it definitely is the most minor petty complaint, but I do find that to be a little over the top.
yeah. Yeah. So yeah, so from a fan experience standpoint, be know that list of things that are banned, Don't
Yeah.
show up with an umbrella. Don't show up with a folding chair. Don't show up with a cooler. Leave your cigarettes at home. You can't
Yeah, no
smoke at the
smoking.
race.
That's the other one that I was really like, ooh,
Yeah,
wow. Like
leave your cigarettes and vape pen at home. You won't be
racing
able to
fans
smoke
are
in the
a
track.
smoky crowd.
Exactly. Indy
Cigarettes
was,
everywhere at Indy, cigarettes everywhere at Road America. So that one, I
yeah,
think, and it's going to be a long day. If I were addicted
but
to nicotine,
yep.
man, that would
So
really
bring
bum
bring
me
your
out.
bring your gum. But
Yeah, I
yeah,
guess.
so there are some things that you're not going to be able to do that are typical race day stuff that you'd like to do.
Hmm.
And again, you have to carry anything you're going to bring in has to be in a clear bag. You can't have uh a opaque purse or backpack with you, right?
It's festival rules. It's
Yeah,
music festival rules. And
right.
it has to be small enough to fit in a small clear bag. That's it. You just wave it at the guys, I'm assuming. There's probably a metal detector.
There will be metal detectors
Yeah,
for
there's
sure. Yeah.
probably I'm guessing.
Yeah, I mean the race runs 2 blocks from the U.S. Capitol. It gets about a half a mile from the White House at its nearest point. So,
Yeah,
you know,
there'll be metal detectors.
it's and some dignitaries are going to be there, and it it should be an interesting race. It's I think what did they say, 147 laps. That'll be about two, just a tenth of a mile short of 250 miles. So the distance works for the event. Like I said, it's a 1.7 mile, 7 turn circuit. So the race, 150 laps, 1.7 miles, we're probably talking a minute 10 for a lap, I would think. So yeah, probably 2 hours, 15 minutes, maybe a little more if we get some yellows for race time. Hopefully it
Hmm.
won't be too hot in DC. It's not supposed to be this weekend. I think they were talking temperatures around 85, but
Oh, that's great.
85 in DC humid
Humid.
could be.
Yeah.
So make sure you're hydrated before you go and make sure you know where the water is when you get there because
Yeah,
you're going to
in
want that.
general, if I were applying my knowledge of attending large scale events to this, the first thing I would do upon walking in, unless I was fully intent on getting a spot right at the fence,
Yep.
in which case I would not leave that spot all day. So I would not hydrate so that I didn't have to go to the bathroom. But if I were attending this, the first thing I would do is scope out water stations, bathrooms, and concessions. No exact. I don't necessarily think just based on the layout and based on having attended a lot of events, it doesn't strike me that this is going to be a very easy to get through the crowd and get to where you want to go kind of city. A big open field situation is very frequently kind of challenging for those kinds of things.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I would know where you need to be at any given time. Maybe arrange a meeting point with your friends with some kind of landmark because, again, it's a big open field. Just, utilize those techniques that you do at more chaotic
Yeah.
events, and you should have an okay time. I would also temper your expectations about seeing the track because, again, it
Yeah. You're
just, I think about when I'm GA at a music festival and like the second they open the gates there are those people who just bolt immediately to the front because they want to ride the rail. That's great for them and I don't want to run. um I just don't. I see this being kind of similar based on how much of the track borders now. It's not hilly, the mall's flat.
Yeah,
you know
exactly. It's
if
not like a hill you can sit up and see a long way or any of that.
if I'm
So
second behind you, I'm not seeing anything.
yeah, I'm
So
not going. So I'm in Maine this weekend. So we planned this vacation week because there was no race. And now here I am in central Maine. Not a bad place to have to be. And fortunately, even though we're in the middle of nowhere, we do have connectivity here. So
yeah,
I
you've got
can
great Wi-Fi. It's going
Yeah,
fine.
so we can watch the race and still talk about it. A couple of other things about the race itself, 150 seconds of push to pass on this,
Okay.
so and 15 seconds maximum per push, which should be fine because maybe the long front straight will take them 15 seconds, right?
Yeah, I was going
To
to
go
say we
down,
don't
right?
have any
So
places where I'd want to deploy 20 seconds of push to
yeah,
pass.
and I wanted to talk about push to pass a little bit because there were some people who said, "Gee, last week, why didn't Grosjean use his push to pass at the end of the race?" And I just want to talk to people about what push to pass is and why he couldn't use it then.
Mhm.
And push to pass is it adds a 60 horsepower boost to the engine by allowing the turbocharger to put more pressure in. So what that means is it's pushing more fuel into the engine. So it's not an electric boost. It is a gas powered boost. And
Mhm.
Grosjean at the end of the race was borderline whether he was going to have enough gas to make it to the
He was
finish.
on a long
Uh,
fuel save stint.
Right. And so he couldn't use push to pass, or he would have run out of gas before the end of the race, would have run out of fuel. So the push
Shell
to,
renewable fuel.
yes, Shell renewable racing fuel fans. Um, so yeah, he couldn't use that push to pass. So fuel strategy, and it'll be interesting to see how strategy plays out in this race. It's a short lap, so how are people going to play that out? It's also, you have to use two sets of the alternate tires and one set of the primes during the race. So we'll see how that goes as well. Um, and given the length of the track, I'm guessing we're probably going to see about 40, 45, maybe a little more, 50 laps between, for a fuel window.
Sure.
So,
Okay.
at 147 laps, that
You
could be
might
a
be able to make
two-stopper.
it a two-stopper.
Right. So we'll just have to see how that plays out.
Okay.
It's two, maybe three stop race if it's run full green, you know.
I I really enjoy a race where it's borderline one
Right.
versus the other.
Where
That
people
that
can
should
make,
give a more simple track a lot of interest.
right.
Um, Speaking of the more simple tracks, something I just thought of is that qualifiers are bound to be a lot of fun then.
Yeah. I mean, it should be very, very close.
Mhm.
The short track means, however, that like in the the split qualifying sessions, you're going to have a lot of cars on track, right?
That's true.
12 or 13 cars on track at a time, and you only have 1.7 miles total space to keep these cars apart. So it's really going to be important for the engineers to get their driver out in at the right space to give
Yeah,
them
the
clear
timing is going to
track.
be very, very vital, not just in the initial groups, but in the Fast 12 as well.
Right.
I am betting here and now that this is the first time we've talked about this or that I've really given it a lot of thought, but I will put $10 on this, Harvey. Somebody's getting screwed because they got dropped in at the wrong
Yeah,
spot.
I think for sure that the other thing is with the Fast Six, this will be a single lap shootout unless something happens to change it like it did at Markham.
Great.
But like they did at Arlington, the single lap shootout will be your Fast Six, which I like that. It adds a little bit more drama to it
I like it a lot too. I was a little skeptical when they first came out with it, but I think it's great. And I like the element where they have the drivers choose when they'd like to go.
when they get to
Um,
go. Do they go right
I
away
think
when their
that
tires are warm? Do they go late when
mhm.
the track is cooling and maybe there's a little more grip? Who knows? So it's going to be a lot of fun to see how that all plays out. The other thing is it is a Saturday, Sunday weekend. There's no Friday. There's no Friday
Mhm.
practice. So practice is 9 a.m. on Saturday. First practice. Second practice is at 1 o'clock on Saturday, and qualifying is at 5 o'clock on Saturday. So it's bang, bang, bang all day. In between, there is an IROC race. I don't know. We've talked about IROC in the past, the International Race of Champions. When I was a kid, this was the coolest race ever. They raced, Porsches and had Jackie Stewart and AJ Foyt and all the best
I am
drivers. And
full team bring back slash repopularize IROC. I
yeah,
think IROC just sounds like a great thing to be around. I'm bummed I
it,
was born at the wrong time.
yeah, it's too bad that they couldn't, like back in my day, it was NASCAR, IndyCar, Formula One, World Endurance Champion drivers, Dan Gurney, all these guys, the best all driving identically prepared initially Porsche 911s and then Chevy Camaros. So it was such a cool series.
Yeah,
But so that's going to happen, and that'll be available, I think, on the Fox One app to watch that race. So
great.
that'll be kind of cool. All the practices will be on either FS1 or FS2 practices, and then qualifying. Um, I didn't check to see if qualifying is on Fox or on FS, one of the FS channels. So if you could look that up, that would be great. So we can tell people the pre-Sunday warm up is at 9. The pre-race festivities start at 11:30. So you got 90 minutes of pre-race. And I hate to tell everyone this and be the bearer of bad news, but part of that pre-race team is Danica Patrick. So
I did see that.
yeah, it's I'm so glad they have Elio Castroneves on it, and Chris
Oh, he's
Myers,
great, man.
and
Elio's perfect.
and
Just
Chris
I
Myers is a pro, but bringing Danica, maybe her commentary will be more relevant for IndyCar than it is in Formula One because she actually drove IndyCar. But I never find her to be particularly insightful.
no, I'm not. No, I'm not wild about Danica's commentary. And we'll just leave it right there. You can find qualifiers for the Freedom 250 on FS2 if
FS2.
you are looking to watch them. And I having thought about it for 15 minutes, really recommend it because I think that this particular track is likely to produce a pretty fun qualifying Saturday.
Yeah, and I think um yeah, I don't know how the race is going to play out in terms of passing and passing zones and all of that. So how important will qualifying be? I think we really have to wait to see how practice goes to understand that. But
Yeah.
that's the hard part about these new circuits. We really don't know. And we talked about it before Markham. We thought there were going to be two or three really strong passing zones, and it turned out that was the case. And actually, there were maybe four. So who knows? Let's see how this track plays out. I think there's some really interesting things that are going to happen this weekend. And again, while the race itself could be exciting, the championship race is over.
Yeah.
I
With
just
and
Alex is up by what, 130 points right now,
oh,
113. I forget
yeah,
what it is, but
it's in the 130s.
yeah.
I don't have the
And
exact number.
just so people are aware, in the last 15 years, the largest deficit overcome with 4 races left in the season is 59 points.
Yeah, it's
So
just not going to happen. There are too
it's
many points available in
right.
IndyCar. It's just not going to happen. But we've got a very exciting race for 2, 3, and 4,
Yep.
and a lot of people with something to drive for going into the end of the season.
Yeah,
So,
there are a lot of drivers in play for a top 10, and top 10 is really meaningful in IndyCar. So,
hell, outside of that, there are a lot of drivers driving for a seat.
oh,
Whether
speaking
it's to
of a
retain the seat they
seat,
have or a better seat, there are a whole lot of them working at something.
there's new rumor in the paddock.
Are you gonna tell me that Mick Schumacher is looking like the favorite for the MSR seat?
No, I'm
Did you
talking
not hear
about
that one?
another former Formula
Oh,
One driver.
oh yeah,
Yuki
this one.
Tsunoda is back in play
Yep,
for
yep.
an IndyCar seat, and they are talking about him for that MSR seat right now.
Yeah, so
Marshall
that's
Pruitt has been
interesting.
talking about it, so which makes
Keep in
sense. He's
mind
a Honda
MSR,
driver.
yes. Absolutely. And Yuki's a personality who I think would be embraced by the fans of IndyCar. He brings a lot of fire to the table.
Yeah.
He's just fun and warm. I'd be really excited to see Yuki. One thing that I hope, if we do get Yuki in an IndyCar next year, I really hope Fox figures out a way to clear up the audio on the team radio.
Yes.
Because you can barely understand what they're saying most of the time, and Yuki's team radio messages leave no quarter.
Yeah.
I really, really
He's the
hope
best
they
on the
clean that up
radio.
so that
Right.
we can hear him word for word.
Yeah.
Yeah, keep in mind MSR is I can't remember if it's been firmly announced or just heavily rumored, but they are likely to be the host of Honda's Charter. So they
Right.
do technically have two open. A
So
lot of
we'll just
fun.
have to see how that goes. So a lot
Philly
in
season's going
play
great.
this weekend. It's a brand new track. I like the compressed 2 day format. It worked out well in Markham, even
Yeah.
though it was unintentional. So let's have a great race weekend. We'll be back Saturday after qualifying to talk about what we saw and what we learned. And then Sunday after the race, we'll again react with our comments then. So until that, for Rides and Drives Team Radio, I'm Harvey. She's Kaz. You can find us on social media, Harvey_drives at Fast Car Kaz. And until then, we're out.
Drive safe, everybody.